The Future 2011 by Miranda July. An interesting figure who has only managed so far to make 3 feature movies and has written 2 novels. She is a performance artist, so these are rather arty, independent movies that she made. So I've always had a fondness for this movie, and because of that fondness and appreciation, I have attempted to like this movie. So I have been watching this for over a decade. I have now watched it maybe 5 times, and I want to like it more than I do. It just doesn't satisfy, it doesn't really come together as a good movie. I want it to be better. I want it to work. I almost sit there willing it to add up and become what it could become, but it just doesn't do it. I actually think I probably liked it more on this viewing than I have in the past, which is slightly odd because I watched her first movie the day before and I felt this actually worked less well for me on that viewing than previously. The problem with The Future is she has an appealing setup idea. We are going to just hang out with these characters for a bit and quirky oddball things will happen to them. But nothing that interesting actually happens. It just doesn't amount to much. The individual scenes aren't that interesting in and of themselves. And then the movie has a surreal, quirky moment at about the 55-minute point. Spoiler coming up. The male lead character stops time. His time stops dead still, while her timeline continues to move on and she continues to live her life while he is in suspended animation. Spoilers end. It's not that it's a terrible idea, although the logic of it is a bit confused. I just don't, it becomes a bit more abstract, there's a bit more surrealism. There's like a moving jumper, a t-shirt that is moving on its own accord, which is just kind of strange imagery that doesn't really mean anything. I have been watching this movie for, like, as I said, 10 years, watched it multiple times, and in that time I have never found any actual meaning or purpose or metaphor or anything really that explains why there is a moving t-shirt that is coming towards her. It doesn't seem to actually mean anything beyond just being a weird image, and I think that if that actually meant something, if there was any actual substance behind that image or these ideas at the end of the movie, I think after this amount of time I should have a pretty good inkling of what they are. Now maybe I'm just really, really thick, but I think that implies there really isn't much actual meaning or purpose or point to what happens in the last 20 odd minutes of this movie, that it's just a bunch of weird crap thrown at the screen. I think it might be a case of, and this happens in far too many movies, strange, odd movies, where it's like they run out of ideas as to how to finish this story off. It's just been a lot of weird stuff, which is fine, but now we've hit the hour mark. We need to actually start to, resolve this plot that we have running. We have no ideas how to do it. Oh, I know what. We'll hit the big red button marked random weird shit. You press that, and now you can just throw a bunch of random weird stuff at the screen, and we'll just hope it'll just be so weird that no one will actually question what the meaning of it all was. I'm thinking specifically of an Atomy Goyen movie, a Canadian art movie from the 80s called Speaking Parts, which had a quite an interesting, compelling story going, and then at the end it's like, we have no idea how to resolve this, so we won't even attempt to resolve it, and we'll just do a bunch of random weird shit. So I want to like the future a lot more than I can. I think the first, say, 55 minutes are okay. They're not. It's not overly compelling. It's not particularly good. It's not as good as it should be, but it's fine. It's okay. And then it gets really odd. The surrealism goes up, and it becomes a bit more abstract. Seems to lack any real purpose. It starts to meander more, and the more abstract it becomes, the less engaged I, as a viewer, become, and I become rather disconnected from it. And if I'm disconnected, I also then become a bit, not that interested. My interest levels drop, and I become mildly bored. I actually did physically yawn a wee bit, just a small, mild yawn just before the end, because if it's just a bunch of weird random crap, and it's not even that weird, it's just mildly odd rather than outright weird. I mean, this is not flamboyant David Lynch surrealism, this is not Alexandro Jodorowsky weirdness, this is quite a mundane, restrained weirdness. The movie also looks a little on the cheap side. I assume it was shot on digital video, and it doesn't have amazing, interesting cinematography. It's quite flat, very almost documentary. We turn up to the location of a set and we just point the camera at the actors, and there's no attempts at flashy editing or fancy camera work. So it's visually not very interesting looking, which is fine. It's just a wee indie movie. But when you're dealing with surrealism, a bit more visual imagination wouldn't do any harm. I think if you're not on the movie's wavelength straight away, you will really struggle. This movie will get up your nose and annoy you, and will just be really quite boring. Because as I said, I'm quite a big fan of Miranda July's first movie, and I think I kind of get on her wavelength more than most viewers do. So I give the future more of a shot, I think, and I think it's got quite an appealing setup. As I say, just hanging out with these characters would be enough if the actual scenes were a bit more overtly entertaining. It's just a shame though that the movie, although plays okay, if very, very unremarkably, really does fall apart to some extent towards the end, with the extended surreal weirdness in the last, I guess, third act. It's just not as good as it should be. I would give the future a mildly generous 5 out of 10. The movie is less charming than her first film, which I think gets by on quite a lot of charm. Well, I'll say this much for the future: it's a hell of a lot better than the terrible third movie she made, which I paid good money to rent and couldn't even finish because it was so bad and uninteresting. That one is called Kajillionaire, and it is not a good movie.